Hello everyone, welcome to the Weekly Guest Podcast. My name is Edward Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here again today. Thank you for taking time out to listen. On this week's podcast, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Tris Reid-Smith. Tris Reid-Smith is Editor-in-Chief, Director and Co-Founder of Gay Stars News. Welcome Tris, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Now then, you are Editor-in-Chief, Director and Co-Founder of Gay Star News, also known as GSN. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you provide and offer to your particular readership?
Yeah, we have about 1 million readers in about 204 countries around the world each month, and we provide 24/7 coverage for them. We're the world's first global news service for LGBT people, so that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex, and so on people. So we give them information, we try and entertain them, and try and make sure that they know everything which is going on.
Now, Gay Star News tends to focus on the more newsworthy end of what's important to the LGBT community, highlighting relevant political, cultural and local community news rather than trivial news. I imagine your decision to follow this direction has contributed in making Gay Star News the award-winning online news website it is. Was it a decision to focus on the more issues largely associated with your previous journalistic experience to date, or did you feel that GSN was allowing you to cover new ground?
In terms of the international scope of what we do, I don't think anybody was really doing that before we came along, so that was a new idea. But obviously I have a background in news, so it's very natural territory to me. And the people we've hired as well are basically experienced news journalists. The other thing I would say, though, is we do try to mix it up with some entertaining stories, some fun stories. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all people being, murdered or executed, or on the one hand, or big political stories. Those hit a big part of our audience, and they're very important, of course. But we try and put some fun stuff in there as well.
Now, with offices based in the UK, US, Australia and Asia, Gay Star News are able to give a more global picture of what's going on around the world, informing the global gay community up to date on the positive and negative occurrences happening right now. I know on the whole that the world is generally more accepting of the gay community, but in saying that, how often are you truly shocked by some of the more negative news?
I think shocked is a tricky word because shocked means surprised as well. And I think that, you look at something like, the corrective rape of lesbians in South Africa, which has been happening, or there was a stoning in an Islamic country in northern Africa of a gay person, or some of the ridiculous bans on gay propaganda, as they call it in Russia, which is causing so many problems. And even in Paris, when they've been bringing in gay marriage in France, there have been homophobic attacks. So even in safer places. So I think that I'm horrified by those. I'm, disturbed by them. I'm not sure I'm shocked because often it's kind of predictable that kind of thing will happen, sadly, because there is still hatred and prejudice out there. On the other hand, we have seen a revolution in thinking in the last few years. And if you look at most of the news we've been covering, in a way, it's been good news this year. We've been able to cover gay marriage coming into place in quite a few American states, Minnesota, Maine, Rhode Island, places like that. We've been able to cover gay marriage coming into place in New Zealand, in Uruguay, in France soon, and hopefully very soon in the UK. So all of those things are moving on. Incredible people are coming out, like the NBA basketball star Jason Collins. It's a big tall black giant who came out and exploded onto the scene recently. So it's great to see that kind of stuff happening as well. And in a way, I'm always more surprised by the good news than I am by the bad.
Wow. Now, given Gay Star News marketing reach, has the website been able to attract a lot of mainstream advertising on the website? And what kind of percentage would that be?
I'm not sure I've ever worked it out by a percentage, and also do you work it out by a percentage in terms of numbers of clients or amount of money? But what I would say is we've been very lucky to have good brands. We had Lufthansa on the site this last year. They're just coming back and rebooked something with us. We've had Hertz booked with us. We just had TravelX booked with us a campaign for the summer. We've worked with Alfa Romeo and people like that. So, we've had some incredible brands and we're very lucky to have done so. I think they probably make up the majority of our income. But we also serve quite a few boutique small businesses as well. And that's an important client base as well for us. So it's a mixture. I would say probably most of it is mainstream.
Right. And through starting out in mainstream press, most of your career has been spent editing gay press publications, progressing rapidly within the ranks. As a result, you must have a valuable insight of perspective into the gay community, especially during the period where there have been lots of community development growth. Have you found yourself being asked to speak or provide input on your take on LGBT community affairs?
Yeah, you're often asked to do that in this job. But the one thing I would say is, like the way you put it, it's my take on it. It's not that I can represent people. There's probably 400 million gay people around the world, and I haven't even met half of them. So I can't represent anybody other than myself. But what I do try and do is try and put some perspective in when I'm being asked to do TV or whatever. The other thing you're sometimes asked to do is get involved in community events, and we try and support as many things as we can as partners. And I was, try to help bring parties together to set up the new London Pride group, which is running the big gay festival in London this summer, for example. But because I'm a journalist and I believe that we have to report things impartially, I'm not able to be on the board of those kinds of things. So I get off the hook that way because I have to be impartial. I do quite often sort of do things behind the scenes to try and introduce people to each other and try and make things happen, which wouldn't otherwise.
Brilliant. And what are the factors that go into deciding what is newsworthy for gay style news? I imagine much of the news is self-sourced, though does some come as a result of press releases received from people wanting to spread the word about their particular initiatives.
Yeah, a lot of the news, comes from all sorts of different directions, but the most important direction in a way is readers or contacts we have who trust us, who contact us to let us know about something which probably most often nobody knows about, and that's where we get our exclusives from. And that sometimes isn't press release, but as much as anything else, it's part of an email or a Facebook message from someone saying, "Oh, can you help out?" or "Can you give me some advice on this?" or "How do I get this out to media?" The what makes a news story is, I think, a question no journalist can satisfactorily answer. You sort of know it when you see it. There's an old journalistic adage about when a dog bites a man, it's not news. When a man bites a dog, it is. So it's there's lots of reasons behind that story, but it's one of those things you sort of know news when you see it. And there's not one formula for it. It's just what people find interesting. And if we find it interesting and we can convey that passion to anybody else, I guess that's what makes a good story.
And social media is a powerful tool for most businesses. And I note Gay Star News actively updates the social media outlets they have profiles on. How valuable has this been for directing traffic towards your news website? Twitter, for example, must be an excellent tool to get the word around about features and have them retweeted around the highlighting what Gay Star News supports.
Yeah, all of that is incredibly important. And the search engines, like Google and Bing and whatever, they do some of your job because they list everything and if people search for it. But really, word of mouth spread through social media is the driver of traffic to all sorts of sites these days, particularly to news. And I think that we wouldn't have anywhere near the size of business we have now if it wasn't for the likes of Facebook, in particular, is very important to us, and Twitter and so on. So yeah, that's something we have someone working full time on, interacting when the journalists are also taking part in interacting. We really try and cherish and look after our social media audience because they're our ambassadors.
And on other gay media websites, I've sometimes seen some negative comments about being made by some readers, not necessarily about the quality of the written content, but more and particularly in feel-good topics, possibly resulting from a little bit of jealousy, resentment, bigotry, and personal bias. Do any of GSN features ever become host to such negative feedback? And if so, how do you deal with it? Or have you found it better not to interact with such minds?
Obviously, we're not right about everything all the time. That would be impossible. So when we get feedback, we have a look at it and see if we think we got it wrong or if we got it right. Yes, obviously, like any site which produces the amount of content we get feedback. I'd say most of it really good, and the overall message is really good. To the point where it's quite often when people complain, they say, "Oh, I love what you do, but." So, we can't be right, and you can't please everybody all the time with every single piece of content. What you can do is try and find a mixture and use people's feedback to kind of keep you honest. You have a responsibility in publishing in media to try and put out messages which are responsible, accurate, and interesting, and exciting and engaging. So you have to listen to people when they say you're getting it a bit wrong and see if you can fine tune it. Sometimes, very rarely, there's someone who's deliberately out there to cause trouble or whatever, and you pick up on that relatively quickly. But you should never dismiss feedback because it's your life.
And are there particular issues that Gaystar News feels quite strongly about and like to show their support and feature quite regularly?
Yeah, there's obviously key stories, which is our duty to cover. What I think it's not so much an issue, but the way we organise our coverage. We try and make sure that we are covering all parts of our community. So lots of gay content sites only focus on gay men. We try and look at lesbian, bisexual people, transgender, intersex people, all sorts of range of our community. And we try and make sure that we're covering all different parts of the world. So that's a question of looking closely and saying, in a tokenistic way, but are we missing out on chunks of the world, and should we be doing more to reach out into what's happening there? Because that's a good seam of stories which we can mine. So I think that our greatest passion is for making sure we're providing as full and accurate a series of coverage as possible. Having said that, obviously we stand for in a broad way lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender equality, but we don't think that the best way of us doing that is by being opinionated. We think it's best to report the facts and let people decide for themselves, and that's the service we provide. We are campaigning in a way, but we're not campaigners. We're journalists, and we're here to put out the truth so people can work from there.
So what's the difference in truth? What's the difference between fact and opinion then?
Yes, that's a very philosophical question, and I'm not sure I can answer it satisfactorily. Obviously, everything has an opinion. Every way you choose to write a story, what you choose to prioritise, what you choose not to, is opinion-based. What I think it's important to do, though, is back up our opinions with someone else's opinions. So if we choose to do it a certain way, it's because someone's expressed it to us that way, who's an expert or whatever. But even now, it's a bit of an unsatisfactory answer. You know when you are being deliberately opinionated. You know when you are trying your best to represent the truth as impartially as possible. It's one of those, when you see it kind of things. But beyond that, we don't leave it quite so much to chance. And I spend a lot of time doing copy clinics with my editorial staff, going through their copy and saying, no, I think you've strayed into opinion here. And we have a section for op-ed pieces, for comment pieces on the site, mostly from other contributors rather than from the journalistic staff. And that's important to give that a forum as well, because there's a real value to opinion, not dismissing it. But when it comes to our journalistic work, we should be focusing as much as we can on that.
So what sort of research do you undertake in order to get the right result or the unbiased result?
It's really a question of talking to people a lot of the time. Sometimes there's factual reports, sometimes there's clear statistics or whatever which you can draw upon. But often it's a question of, more often than not, it's a question of going to person A who has this version of the story, and then to person B who has the opposite version of the story. And that actually includes talking to people who, may feel a bit uneasy about talking to Gaystar News. So, covering people who will be described as homophobic, but giving them the opportunity to really express what they're thinking, rather than running a risk of misquoting them.
And I think that the London LGBT community are continually making efforts to showcase its developments. For example, London 2018's current bid to host the Gay Games. Bearing in mind what you report on, do you feel that the community is making the right strides? And has Gaystar News highlighted other important matters in need of support too? And what are they?
In terms of matters in need of support, yes, there's certainly issues we've highlighted through our regular like gay marriage, like decriminalisation of homosexuality. It's still illegal in about 76 countries around the world. But in terms of events, we don't just support events in London. We are a global media partner for London Pride, but we do the same for Sydney Mardi Gras, for Pride in LA, for events in all around the world in different places, and Euro Pride in Marseille this year, something else. So we try and give backing to interesting and exciting events, and we try and make sure that we are doing as much of a cross-section as we possibly can. Back to London, I would say the community is a fantastically diverse community, and London, because of its, because of Britain's policies, essentially, and because of its diverse community, is a beacon for so many people, not just LGBT people, but all sorts of minorities and all sorts of people around the world. A place where you can, aspire at least to be who you want to be and to be free in how you express that. And I think that the London community is going out there a lot of the time and, doing what it should do, get on with its daily life, have a lot of fun, and celebrate what we've got. I think gay marriage is going to be an incredible party when it's passed by Parliament in this summer. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think that, the events like London 2018, obviously there's still in the bidding, other cities are competing for those gay games. But those will be a good opportunity, if London wins, to show off the achievements of the community in a slightly different way, a healthy, sort of competitive way. So that's quite cool.
Now, what are the types of clients that you're looking to meet then?
Clients are looking to meet, well, we are always interested in all sorts of different kinds of companies. We think we probably work best for bigger brands who are genuinely interested in meeting the LGBT audience and genuinely interested in working with them. They don't just want a quick buck, but they're in to work with the community in an authentic way over a decent period of time. Because it's sometimes the clients have an unrealistic expectation of running a sort of 2-week campaign and expecting a miracle from that in terms of the way their business is viewed. You don't get that. I mean, maybe if you're selling a few products, you can sell products in 2 weeks. You can't necessarily change the way your business is seen in 2 weeks. So we try and work with people who are serious about it, serious about doing it in the meantime, because we know that will be most successful for them. But, we're interested in a range of people: fashion, cars, travel, diverse businesses which want to recruit LGBT staff, all sorts of different types of people and more than I've listed can talk to us.
Now, what does the future hold for you and Gay Star News then?
Yes, big question, but we are sort of continuing to grow at the moment. We've got some big plans which I'm not quite ready to announce, but once we reach certain trigger points, which we hope to do this summer, we'll be looking at our expansion, particularly our global expansion, quite a lot. And that might well mean increasing our coverage and a deepening of our client base as well. So, it's a really exciting time for us, and there's so much more. I think we've only been around for less than 18 months, and we've shown the potential of the business. So there's so much more we'd like to reach, and I think it's going to be really fun over the next sort of couple of years.
Lastly, Tris, what piece of advice would you give to someone starting out in business?
Yeah, other than have sleepless nights. I don't know, in a way, it's quite hard to say one thing. All of the regular stuff. Make sure you really consider your business carefully, make sure you really research the market, have a really detailed plan, and then that's something you can wave in front of the nose of investors, bank, people who might back you, even some clients who you might want to have as launch clients, depending on the type of business you've got. So I think all of those obvious points, but I was always nervous about starting a business. I always wanted to do it, and so was my partner. And I think that the key thing we've learned is to give it a go, and I'm not saying rush into it, but make sure that you realise you can achieve it. There's so many people who probably sitting in big corporate offices wishing to get out and go and do their own thing, or seeing their bosses do things in a way they don't agree with and think that they can do better. So go out there and just give it a go. What's the worst which can happen?
Thank you, Tris. So it's bye from me, Edward Daniel, and it's bye from Tris Reid-Smith.
Goodbye, thanks very much.
Have a terrific week.